If we're relying on those things outside of us to tell us who and how we are, then we're going to see the world as dangerous and we're going to feel unsafe. But we know, going back to what we know about the presence, that the presence is everything there is. You cannot look upon a thing and not be looking at the presence of God. It's all God. So that's what we want to be grounded in. We, as spiritual people, we don't want to rely on the outer world. We want to rely on that knowing within our own being of who and what we are. That each of us is the presence, and that the more we can become aware of it, the more we can express that Christ nature within us. I need to say anything after that. So we live in unsettled times. There's uncertainty, there's instability. We all see it. Globally, of course, we've got wars going on and wars escalating, and there's a concern that they could even draw the United States into it in a way that we wouldn't want. And of course, in our own country, of course, there's an election coming up really soon, and there's such division. If you turn on the TV, you can see the different ads, and there's animosity, and even on social media and various things, there's just a lot of dissension going on. And in some cases, it feels like that we want everybody to come over to our side, and that if you don't come to my side, it's kind of a life or death issue. Like it's that important that people see things your way, or they vote in the way you want them to. And there are questions about why has it become that life or death issue for us. Carrie Newhoff is a minister who has done a lot of work in large and small congregations, and he also sees things out in the world in particular ways, and he thinks the reason that it's become so dire for us is that we've become a secular society. That in the past, people were more identified with their faith. They probably went to church on Sunday, and y'all are at church on Sunday, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but more people would go to church on Sunday. They had a faith, they professed it, they would pray before meals, they would pray before meetings, they would pray before football games. Do y'all remember that? That it was just an integral part of society, and that as things would have happened in our country, we've sort of been taking the religion out of places so that it's become more of a secular society. But see, the thing is when we were more involved in things spiritual, when we allowed God into more parts of our lives, when we did that, we had an identity in that. We knew, the people in society, they kind of knew where they fit, and they had a way to view the world. But when we took that away from them, there was left a void, and something had to fill the void. And so what has filled the void, Carrie tells us, is that people have latched on to ideas and beliefs and political parties, and that has become their identity. Whereas before, identity was about something spiritual in a way. Now it's about these beliefs and these ideas and these positions that we hold. And so when someone doesn't agree with you, it's very personal because it's dealing with your identity. It feels almost like a personal attack. And that's where that feeling of life and death comes from. That there's this feeling like people are attacking you or are attacking if they don't believe like you do. Carrie says some people are so tied to their positions that giving them up feels like dying. That's what happens when identity attaches to a belief. That's what happens when our political party becomes our religion. We look back in the past and we say, they used to do things like crusades and all that, and boy, wasn't that barbaric, and they were all fighting there because of religion. Well, if you look at it, we're kind of doing the same thing with our views. We fight the other side. We call them names. We spread things about them that may or may not be true. I don't know, but there's great division in our country, and just a sense of not being safe with the other, not being safe. But as spiritual people, I would say we want to be safe, and we want to know that our safety comes in our faith in the presence, in our understanding of who we are, that we don't want something that's outside of us to define our safety or our identity. Right? We want to be more centered than that. We don't want to be moved about by what happens in the outer world here. We don't want to necessarily see those things as life and death. Because I tell you what, this is no secret. Come election day, or some days after, half of the country is going to be very upset. And even if you might not individually be one of the ones that are upset, there are going to be other things in life that upset you. It happens. It's kind of by nature that happens. It's on purpose. So, let's not think everything's out of control, because we know God has it all, right? It's all the presence. So we know that's going on, but still, something's going to upset you. So we don't want to be pulled off our center by all of these things that happen in the outer world. We want to be grounded. We want to have a center to ground in. We want to have an identity that we can say, this is who I am, and it really doesn't change. It doesn't change no matter who's in office or what goes on over there or over there. It doesn't change. So it's time maybe that we take a look at that identity and said, well, if I've been identifying as a belief or an idea or a political party, maybe I could shift my identity to a person of a particular faith, a person of a particular knowingness about who I am as an expression of the presence, that I'm a radiating center of divine love. Doesn't that sound better than, well, I'm a, fill in the blank, whatever you want, all the different kinds of differences we have these days? It sounds so much better. So maybe to take a look at our identity, we need to look at the presence, look at God, and say, well, okay, what do we know about God? Because we were all created from this one presence. Ellen Davenport, in the book The 5 Principles, talks of God as the ground of being. She says this: the ground of all being is the creative force behind sweeping galaxies and infinitesimal life forms, of bewildering fractal patterns and perfect seasonal cycles, of mind-blowing beauty and pure potential, the oak tree and the acorn, the child and the microscopic twist of DNA. God is a field of love and intelligence that is the foundation of the universe. Let's just breathe that in for a second. So what that means is that everything emanates from this presence, that the one presence has created all that is out of its own beingness. That means that everything's made of God stuff. Everything and everyone. But as humans, we've forgotten. We forgot. We kind of splatted when we landed here, and our breath went one way, our consciousness went another way, our body hung out there, and so we kind of look to the outside for, okay, well, where are we? What are we doing? And so the ego gets involved in that, and we start sensing things from the outside, and before you know it, that's kind of our reality out there, and the mind gets involved with being right, and the ego always wants to make sure that it's the right one, and it sees things that are different as dangerous, when really we know that differences are delightful, that differences make life interesting. But the ego and the mind sees them as dangerous. And if we're relying on those things outside of us to tell us who and how we are, then we're going to see the world as dangerous and we're going to feel unsafe. But we know, going back to what we know about the presence, that the presence is everything there is. You cannot look upon a thing and not be looking at the presence of God. It's all God. So that's what we want to be grounded in. We, as spiritual people, we don't want to rely on the outer world. We want to rely on that knowing within our own being of who and what we are. That each of us is the presence, and that the more we can become aware of it, the more we can express that Christ nature within us. That's what we want to have our identity grounded in, that our essence is divine. It's divine. Well, it's harder than it seems because we're sensory beings. You know, we've got those five senses. The eyes and the ears and the nose and the mouth, and we feel things. And those senses are always feeding information to us and telling us what's changing out here. So it has our attention. In the Bhagavad Gita, you might have heard about that. It's an ancient piece of literature, spiritual literature. Arjuna is a charioteer. He's going into battle, and he sees the battlefield, and he says, whoa, that's kind of too much for me. So the battlefield is like the world, and how his sense is interpreting the world. And so he says, Lord Krishna, you drive the chariot. He's saying, I'm going to turn my senses over to a higher being so that I can just make it through and do what it is that I'm supposed to be doing without all of this stuff coming to impact me. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which once again, ancient, the Yoga Sutra is ancient, in the book written by Sri Swami Satchitananda, he says, the senses are like a mirror. Turned outward, they reflect the outside, but turned inward, they reflect pure light. So we want the senses to reflect what's inside of us. He says, by themselves, the senses are innocent, but when allowed to turn outside, they attract everything and transfer those messages to the mind, making it restless. Is your mind ever restless? I think that's the whole reason we get addicted to social media and TV and all those kind of things, right? The mind is restless. It wants, feed me more, give me more. I need to input more from the senses. That's what it feels like it needs from this restlessness. But if we can turn the senses inward, they find peace. They find peace. So we want to go from the outside being what impacts us, the outside being where we gather our sense of identity, to within, to the inside. And I'm telling you, it cannot be done just with the mind. We're going to have to get the body involved. Because we know the mind, right? It's the thing that created the ego. So the body is a much more pure reflection of the higher essence of who we are. It does not lie. It doesn't filter things like the mind does. So we want to be grounded in the presence. We want our identity to be grounded there. So when we're talking about grounding, if we're talking in terms of chakras, we're talking about the root chakra. It's the lowest of the chakras. It's at the base of the spine. And a chakra is simply an energy center. It affects physical energies, and it also affects levels of consciousness. So the root chakra, it really represents our sense of belonging, our sense of safety, our sense of security, our sense of who we are. It's about survival. So if we're not grounded in our root chakra, we're anxious. We're a little bit nervous. We might feel unsafe. We might try to focus on the exterior to give us something to hold on to. We may have self-esteem issues. We may have problems with communication. We can have physical symptoms that deal with our bone structure, with our joints. That's the root chakra. And so there's a lot of anxiety going around today. And to me it says that probably a lot of us don't have our identity grounded in our root and in the ground of being. So we want to do that, and we want to involve the body with it. Dr. Sue Morter says, if you're not in your root chakra, you're not in your body. And if you're not here fully, you suffer. So we want to go within, and not only within in the mind, but we want to go within in the body. And we want to be grounded. Grounded. There's a little thing in yoga, it's called Mula Bandha, where you lift the pelvic bowl a little bit, and it's a way to kind of root and ground yourself in your body, like I'm here, I belong. This is my gig, this is my life. I get to choose what I experience. See, that's how we can feel if we're grounded, if we're rooted, and that's how we're meant to feel. When we're rooted that way, then nothing can sway us because we're made of spirit, right? And spirit is fully present everywhere and fully present as us, and we get to speak a thing and have it be so. So how are we going to do all this? How are we going to get grounded? How are we going to anchor our identity and presence? Well, I brought some tools with me this morning. And as I like acronyms. So I have an acronym for us to use. The acronym is ACL. And you say, oh, well, that's a familiar word around here in Austin, ACL. But we're going to use it in a different way. The A stands for affirm the divine within. Whenever we feel pulled off of our center, affirm the divine within. Affirm that you know yourself as the divine. You know that you're made of God's stuff. You know what you're looking at is made of God's stuff. That there is this one presence, nothing but God here, right? Yeah. So when things happen that upset you, stand in the truth of faith, of your faith and your awareness of this. Affirm that my identity is built on this solid foundation of the presence, of the ground of being. Affirm that. And for our country, maybe, affirm what you'd like to see. Not, oh, I want to see everybody be a D or an R. No, but affirm that we want a country that is free, that is prosperous, that has people that are open, that are helpful to others, that are loving, that works, that people can communicate with each other, that they're respectful of each other. Affirm those things. Affirm those things. Declare, I am that I am. That strong statement. I am the presence in expression. I am goodness itself. I am love. Affirm. That's the A. Now, the C stands for, it's a practice, and it's called central channel breathing. And I think I've done it here before with you. Not everybody knows what it is. I'm going to run through it. This is a manner of breathing which helps us focus on the inside. It helps us go within. And it also helps balance the energy in our body systems so that we're not too much stuck up in the head, or that so we don't have a totally inactive root. Okay? It helps balance, and it also, in certain ways, it also unblocks things that have been stuck. So it's a great thing to do. So we're going to do it right now. Everything, you're going to breathe in and out only through your nose. Only through the nose, okay? And we're going to breathe up and down the body. Now, I'm going to move my hand like this to show you where, but you don't have to move your hand. You can just sit there. So let's start. And another thing is, I'm going to feel the breath moving through my body. You might not feel it. If you don't feel it, that's okay. Just imagine it. Because we know that Imagination is simply remembering what we used to know, right? So, okay. So here we go. In and out through the nose. Start beneath your feet. Inhale to the belly. We're always going to turn at the belly. And then now exhale up the spine, up the spine and out the head. And now inhale from above all the way down through the brain, the throat, the heart, down into the belly, big Buddha belly. And exhale out through the root, down through the legs and into the earth. Okay, that's one cycle. We're going to do that 2 more times. Okay, just to get you into it. Okay. Inhale up from the earth, up into the belly. Exhale up the spine, out the crown. And then inhale from above, down through the crown, throat, heart, belly, big Buddha belly. Exhale out through the earth. That's the second cycle. We're doing it 1 more time. Inhale up into the belly and exhale up the spine, out the top of the head. And then inhale from above, down through the throat, solar plexus into the belly, and then out through the root and into the earth. So this will do more for you than what you can imagine. It is a recognition of the divine within, and that you have the power to actually move things. It will, like I said, will do you much more than you can imagine. And I would do it every chance you get. Certainly if you're upset. Because you can stand in front of somebody else and they don't even know you're doing it, right? It's just a breath work thing, yeah. But every chance you remember, if you could only breathe, if this was the only way you breathed, it would be fabulous. So that's the C in our ACL of the day. Now the L stands for lava/love. And you might say, well, okay, that's different, and it is. So they say at the center of the earth that there's this molten lava, okay, and that it is so hot that nothing can withstand its heat. Well, to me, that sounds like what we say about the heart, the bonfire of the heart, that it burns that love so greatly that nothing can stand in its way. So what we want to do is we want to be grounded in that molten love lava of the earth, to feel ourselves planted so firmly that our identity's planted right there, that we know who we are and that we can't be moved by these things in the outer world that have a tendency to upset us, that we know the presence of the divine is there. Now, it's interesting, one of the practices I did, one of the retreats I was at, we had a practice of actually feeling ourselves on an energetic basis going all the way to the center. And I'll tell you, when I did that, I got tears because it was like I felt like I was coming home. So it's a practice that we can do. And it's physical, and it's also remembering of us who we are, what we come from. You know, the earth is like a big being in itself, and the molten lava is like the beating heart, right? So we can reach down in there. Reach down in there. Feel it running all the way down beneath your feet into that molten lava. Especially if there's something that's upsetting you or something you need to do, you're maybe a little excited about, like, you know, you may have to give a talk at a church or something like that, and you may be like, okay, I'm going to ground now, right? But no, ground into that molten lava love. It's love. It reminds us that everything is love. Carrie Nieuwhof says this: what do you do with people who are different from you? You love them. So when we're faced with that which we are uncomfortable with, ground in that molten lava love and love them. love them. In our church, we want to ground in this molten lava love to remember that this is the church that love built, and the place that's inviting, that's open, that's welcoming, and the place where people who love still gather. So, the tools, to summarize them. The A stands for affirm the divine within. C, central channel breathe, I mean it. And lava love, ground yourself in that divine essence, in that beingness there. Yes, these are unsettling times, and there's a lot going on. If we're going to address what's all going on, who is best to address that, if not us? Who is best to reconcile those things that may seem unreconcilable, except us? It's ours to do. But if we're grounded in our sense of identity, in who we are, then nothing can pull us off from knowing the truth of what we know. And our hearts will only have room for more and everyone. Thank you.
So next Sunday morning at 9, Joni Lorraine will facilitate a class on unity and the history of Unity Church of the Hills. This class is a second in the series of Path to Discovery classes that are currently going on. They're in progress. Anyone who is interested is invited to join Joni in room 131 or via Zoom, and you can register online for a link. Now, board nominations will be accepted through next Sunday, October 20th. Nomination forms are out there in the foyer, as they say, and online include information about the qualities and qualifications and limitations. So you'll find all the information you'll need online. So 2 new board members will be elected during the November 4th annual meeting. We Wisdom classroom cleanup is currently underway. We're just clearing out those rooms to make them more attractive and usable for classes and rentals. Thank you to those who have already volunteered to help with this project. Could you use a little extra spending money for the holidays, and who couldn't? Do you love to create beautiful gifts? Reserve your table now to sell these beautiful things at the annual Holiday Bazaar on Sunday, December 8th. And if you'd like to do that, see Melissa Larson in the bookstore if you have any questions, or you can register online to get more details. Happy anniversary it's the 29th anniversary to Unity Church of the Hills. On November 3rd, yes, let's give a hand for us. On November 3rd, Reverend Ron Scott, who was our founding minister, will bring us the 11 a.m. Sunday service talks. And then, after service, we'll gather in Friendship Hall for a potluck meal. We'll gather outside to dedicate a memorial stone for his wife, Reverend Lenore Scott, and Reverend Ron will facilitate a conversation about grief in the afternoon. So bring your friends and family and come celebrate with us this very special occasion. It wouldn't be the same without you. Now, wear your Halloween costume to church on Sunday, October 27th. Reverend Heidi Elfrey will bring us her message titled, "Which Witch Are You?" Yikes. And we will have a special treat planned for the children as they join us in the sanctuary at the end of the service. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful.